What's going on, guys? It's your boy. Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about the most underrated movies that have come out this year. I am going to be doing this in kind of three different tiers. Some of these movies aren't necessarily movies that are underrated. I just think that they're overhated. And then I have another tier that's going to be just movies that I feel like aren't talked about enough. I don't think that they're necessarily incredible movies, but they're movies that I feel like deserve a little bit more recognition than they get. And then the last tier is going to be movies that I think are in the top 10, top 15 movies that have came out this year that I've heard like nobody talking about or praising. So that being said, since I have a lot of movies to talk about, we're going to go and dive right into this. Before I get too far into this, I want to give a quick disclaimer. I don't think this movie's been out long enough for me to know if it's underrated or overrated, but I wanted to give it a shout out. The Hunger Games: The Ballad of the Songbirds and Snakes would be in my last tier, as I think it's one of the top 10, 15 movies that have come out this year. But that being said, it only has been out for like 3 or 4 weeks, so it's not really been out long enough for me to be able to tell if it is underrated, because as far as I'm seeing, a lot of the general consensus about the movie is it is really good. I just know that the Rotten Tomatoes score is a little low, and the IMDb scores are a little low, but I think it is really solid movie. I think that the character work in it is fantastic. I think that the only thing that the Hunger Games movie lacked with is the structure was a little weird. It kind of felt like this last hour was like a whole different movie, but other than that, I think the movie was incredible. But now that I got that out of the way, we're going to be talking about two movies that I think are very overhated that kind of came out at the beginning of the year that a lot of people were like, wow, these movies were absolutely terrible. And I think that both of these movies are pretty good and they accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that that's one of the big things is a lot of the complaints that I've seen for these two movies in specific are complaints that I feel like are not relevant to the movie itself. So the first movie I'm talking about is the movie Ghosted. This was a Apple original TV movie. It was a rom-com starring Ana de Armas and Chris Evans. And the overall plot was Ana de Armas' character is a super spy who is trying to do some illegal mission or something like that. And Chris Evans' character is just a little farmer boy who happens to get tangled up with her and then flies across the country to go see her. And there's just a fun little action-adventure type story in the middle of this rom-com. And I think that a lot of people really hate this movie because, for one, they think that the two main actors and actresses don't have any chemistry. And for one, Ana de Armas' character says in the beginning of the movie, and mentions it multiple times throughout the length of the movie, she doesn't want a relationship. She's not wanting a relationship. She's literally trying to stay single and enjoy her, singleness. And it bothers me because the entire length of the movie, it's a little will they, won't they kind of story that's going on. And the majority of people online are like, they have like no chemistry in this movie at all. This is like a terrible romance. But it's like, the last act of the movie, all of their scenes together, they have great chemistry. And their final scene where they're actually like a couple is perfect. It's just the fact that beforehand, they're not trying to be a couple. They're trying to be, Ana de Armas doesn't want anything to do with this guy, and this guy is obsessed with her. So the chemistry doesn't really work very well because Chris Evans' character is obsessed with her. Ana de Armas' character wants nothing to do with them. And I feel like it's by design that they don't seem to work really well together. And then another thing is a lot of people complain about that movie because it doesn't have great action. It's a rom-com. It's hilarious, and it has a pretty decent love story. The action was just kind of an added bonus, and there were some action sequences that I thought worked really well. The final set piece was on a giant revolving room or whatever, which was a really cool set piece. And then there was a chase scene where Ana de Armas is driving a bus through some weird hills in the Middle East or whatever, and it's so intricate and weird, and it's better than action that I would expect from a rom-com. And I just think that that's weird that I was getting attacked like that. And then the other one that I have is, once again, this movie, I just think it's overhated. Shazam! Fury of the Gods. This is Shazam 2. I think that this movie, all things considered, behind the scenes stuff that happened with this movie was pretty solid. And I think that a lot of people are really hating on the movie because it's too silly. And I think for the people who think that Shazam! Fury of the Gods is too silly of a movie, let me say the concept of the movie real quick. A group of foster children get superpowers and become a super team. Let me say it again. Foster children get superpowers. That's going to be a silly movie. They're all a bunch of little kids. I understand that they're being played by adult actors when they're in their super form, but they're kids. And at the heart of this movie, it's almost a kid's movie. It's a very for the family superhero movie, and I think that the family dynamic in it works really well. I think that a lot of the comedy in it works really well. Something that I really liked about this movie is the mythology part of it works incredibly well. I think that a lot of movies since Doctor Strange has came out, all of the superhero movies that have done something magic related has felt like Doctor Strange. And this world, they decided, you know what? Let's go for more of a Harry Potter style magic. And they have stuff like flying books in the library. They have a room full of floating doors, which is really cool. And I thought that that stuff worked really well in this movie. But a lot of people couldn't get past the fact that the superhero that's a literal child is making jokes throughout the entire movie. And yeah, there is a really bad Skittles product placement. I will say that one kind of sucks. But for the most part, this movie is silly because it's supposed to be silly. And it was going to probably be a much better movie, but they had to kind of choose a new villain because of all the stuff that happened with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Black Adam and him not wanting to be in the movie. Overall, I think that this movie was pretty good. And now this next year is basically just movies I want to shout out because I think they're all pretty good, but I haven't heard a lot of people talk about them. The first one, animated movie on Netflix called Nimona. This movie is absolutely beautiful. I didn't know the whole story behind it, but apparently this was a movie that Disney was going to have like a couple of years ago. They bought a company from Fox that was working on this movie, and then Disney was like, can it? We don't want this project. And it was like almost done being made or whatever. And then Netflix picked it up and they made it. And it is a beautiful story about a girl who's a shapeshifter. There's a medieval knight, but it takes place in like the future. It's a very cool story. And I think that the fact that it's very symbolic and it has a really good theme of people seeing you as a monster and you being able to show them that you're not actually a monster. And I really like the fact that it shows kind of that beauty is only skin deep, and then it's more what's on the inside that matters, and I think that it's a really beautiful movie. This next one, I'm going to say the same thing I said when I reviewed this movie. If you hear the name of this movie and you're like, wow, I think I would love this movie, you're going to love this movie. The movie Cocaine Bear, one of the funniest movies that has came out this year, and I think that overall it is unironically like the best ensemble movie that I've seen this entire year. There is a huge cast in this movie, and the A plot, the C plot, the D plot, whatever, all of the different plots come together at the end, and it works really, really well. Like I said, the comedy is fantastic in this movie. There's a couple of characters who have really interesting backstories, and the way that they end up connecting with each other is really interesting. And I think that overall, it's just a really, really fun movie. Not for everybody, obviously, because it's called Cocaine Bear. But like I said, if you heard that name, Cocaine Bear, and you're like, that's a movie I would enjoy, you would enjoy it. The next one, a little bit of a more serious movie. This was an Amazon Prime movie. The Burial, starring Jamie Foxx. This was an incredible movie, and I absolutely loved it. And I haven't seen a lot of people talking about it, but I love scenes that have to do with the jury. I love all of the trial scenes and any movies or TV shows that have trial. I think that it's such a fun landscape to be working in. I feel like it's a really cool setting to have a movie, and this entire movie is so triumphant. It feels amazing. Tommy Lee Jones and Jamie Foxx's connection here works really well, and I love the whole character of black lawyers in a time where America doesn't really respect any black people at all, being able to overcome that, like, they're kind of put down a couple of levels, and they're having to overcome, one, just prejudice in general, and two, the fact that they're a small-owned family business being tackled by this giant mega corporation, and they win, and it is a really, really good movie. Alrighty, and I just have two more movies that I'm going to quickly shout out. I'm not going to talk about these as much. I just want to once again shout them out. Apple TV had a movie called Flora and Son. This is the first movie I've seen in a long time with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he's fantastic in it. And the way that they visualize long-distance relationships in that movie is incredible. And it's just overall a very fun movie about a family that's very troublesome and has a lot of issues with poverty and stuff like that, struggling to just live their best life and make the best out of life. And I really like it because it kind of feels like the show Shameless if you were to make it a musical and make it a movie. And that movie was fun. Like I said, Flora and Son on Apple TV. And then this other one, Sitting in Bars with Cakes. Once again, this one feels more like a TV show. It kind of feels like an old Freeform or what's it called? ABC Family TV show. And I really like it. It's called Sitting in Bars with Cakes. I don't remember if I said the name or not. But very fun movie. It's about two young girls who are trying to live their best lives over in, I believe, LA. And they're trying to get a social life. The extroverted one is trying to get the introverted one to go out more. And she loves baking and stuff like that. One day they accidentally bring a cake to a bar, realize that's a huge hit. And then they start taking cakes to bars all over the city and going on these fun little joy nights. And it's a very fun movie. It has a lot of really good comedy in it. The two main actresses bounce off of each other really well. And towards the end of the movie, spoiler alert, if you plan on watching it, I do think this is better if it surprises you and it catches you off guard. But one of the main characters gets cancer, and then the other one kind of goes on to finish their little cake bar adventure without them. And it's a very beautiful celebration of life, and I think it is a very emotionally heavy movie, but in the first hour and a half, it's just a great comedy, and then the last 30 minutes they have this very heartwarming goodbye and everything, and I really love what they were able to do with that movie. Alrighty, and this last little tier here is two movies that I think are arguably top 10, top 15 movies that came out this year. I will say I do have a little bit of a personal connection with one of these, which is why I'm going to put it a little higher. Gran Turismo. Personally, I think that this movie is incredibly overlooked, but I think it's one of the best well-rounded movies that have come out this year. There's a lot of emotional sequences. If you want to cry, there's a sequence or two in here that'll make you cry. If you're looking for a love story, there's a pretty cute love story in this movie. There's a lot of comedy in this movie. There's a lot of, if you loved OG sports movies, like back in the early 2000s, there's a lot of triumphant feels like this, and I think that the cinematography for it is great. All of the sequences where they're driving on the track is incredibly cool. The visualization from him being in a room playing video games to him actually being on an actual track is really cool. I like the way that they did all those graphics and stuff. I think that David Harbour's performance in this is incredible. I think that he deserves an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor in this, and I really love kind of the pep talks that he has. I love the relationship that he has with the main character. Really, really good movie. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. I think it's on some streaming services now. I'm not entirely sure. Look it up. But yeah, would definitely recommend that one. And then this last one, I love biopics, and I am absolutely obsessed with biopics. I just recently made a video where I ranked a bunch of biopics. The movie Tetris. I absolutely love this movie. This movie has some of the highest stakes and the biggest like tension that I've ever felt in a biopic. And something that biopics always really kind of struggle with is a lot of times, since it's something that's based off of a true story, you kind of already know how the movie's going to end. Oh, this company is trying to make shoes and they're trying to, you know, be famous or whatever. That's weird because they, you know, they still exist. So, you know, by the end of the movie, hey, this is going to be successful, right? So it's hard to build stakes in a movie like that where everybody knows the outcome of it. But Tetris did such a good job. They have him in Russia during one of the most dangerous times to be in Russia. And it literally feels like so many times where he could literally die. And it's so interesting. I love some of the stylization that they do in this movie. I think that there are some sequences, like there's a car chase scene where they change it to being like 8-bit graphics. If they crash into something, they pixelize the car or whatever. A lot of fun, really cool stuff. And I think that it has really good use of diegetic music. There's a scene where they are partying in a bar that's, I think it's either underground or it's a rooftop bar. And they're listening to the song Final Countdown, and they're all celebrating because they're trying to make a revolution over in Russia. And it's a very beautiful scene, and I love everything about that movie. In my opinion, it's one of my favorite biopics that has came out this year. But whenever people are talking about biopics that come out this year, they're only talking about Oppenheimer, they're talking about Air, they're talking about Blackberry. Tetris was incredible, and I love it, and I'm a huge fan of Taron Egerton, so I might be biased. But yeah, those were, in my opinion, some of the most underrated movies that have came out this year. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, feel free to like and subscribe. If you guys have any other movies that came out this year that you think are underrated, please let me know down in the comments. I'll try to check them out. But that being said, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out. Bow, bow, bow.
He wanted me to drop a verse, I did this. We planned a day, and then we did this. Wanna be in love with the girls with the kisses. Don't give a damn, I'll rid this. I like this when I run the distance. I run a 5K, you go ballistics. I wanna live within the business. Buy more than what's on the clearances. You're getting banned cause I know you're a physicist. I wanna deny this shit, I'm unlimited.